Look, I am not saying we panicked. That would be inaccurate. Panic implies a loss of composure, a breakdown of military discipline, a failure of our superior Kaltheen intellect. What happened when the human female breached our vessel was more of a collective tactical reassessment. In real time. Very loud real time. Commander Vrek. My second officer, Tom, practically shrieked across the bridge. His 3 eyes were spinning in different directions, a sure sign that his neuroclusters were overloading. The airlock on Deck 7 has been compromised. I swiveled in my command cradle, my dorsal plates flaring instinctively. Compromised how, exactly? She just walked through it, sir. Walked through a reinforced titanium airlock. No, sir. Tom's voice cracked like a hatchling's. She knocked. We opened it. Silence blanketed the bridge. 17 Kaltheen warriors, each trained in 43 forms of combat, each capable of processing battle scenarios at quantum speeds, each possessing enough firepower in their neural implants to level a small moon, and we had just opened the door. For a human. Who authorized that? I demanded, my vocal sac inflating with barely contained fury. Junior Technician Prill raised one trembling appendage. She seemed very insistent, Commander. Insistent. Yes, sir. She knocked 3 times. Very firmly. I pressed my primary manipulator against my forehead ridge, feeling a stress migraine forming in my anterior cortex. 3 cycles. We had been observing Earth for 3 cycles, carefully documenting their species, cataloging their weaknesses, preparing for what should have been the easiest conquest in Kaltheen history. Humans were soft, fragile, short-lived creatures who somehow managed to kill themselves in the most creative ways possible. They ate poisonous plants for entertainment. They jumped out of flying vehicles with fabric parachutes. They kept predatory animals in their homes and called them pets. And yet, here we were. Show me the security feed, I ordered. The holographic display shimmered to life, and there she was. The human female stood in our corridor, approximately 1.7 meters tall, with that peculiar mane of head fur they called hair, hers a shade somewhere between copper and flame. She wore what appeared to be their casual attire, fitted blue leg coverings and a black upper garment with symbols I could not quite translate. On her feet were white recreational locomotion devices. Sneakers. She had invaded a Class 5 warship wearing sneakers. Computer, identify the intruder, I said, trying to maintain some semblance of authority. Identification, Maggie Torres, age 28 standard Earth years, occupation registered as mechanical engineer, residence listed as Houston, Texas, United States of America. The computer paused, which computers should not do. Commander, there is additional information. Proceed. Subject has an average credit score. She is 17 days late on her vehicle payment. She has watched a digital entertainment series titled Star Trek approximately 42 times. She once fixed a broken elevator with a paperclip and what she described as spite. I stared at the display. How is any of that relevant? Unknown, Commander. The Human Information Network is extensive and frequently contradictory. On the screen, Maggie Torres was now examining our wall panels with apparent interest, running her fingers along the bioluminescent strips we used for navigation. She pulled a small rectangular device from her pocket, one of their primitive communication tools, and appeared to be taking photographs. Is she documenting our technology? Tom asked, his voice pitched high with alarm. No, I said slowly, watching as she turned the device around to face herself, making exaggerated facial expressions. I believe she is taking what they call a selfie. A what? A self-portrait photograph. For social media purposes. In the middle of an alien invasion? Apparently. Look, I will be honest with you. At this point, I was beginning to question every decision that had led me to this moment. I had graduated top of my class at the Kaltheen War Academy. I had conquered 14 worlds. I had personally negotiated the surrender of the Kaltheen Empire, a process that involved poison drinks, elaborate deception, and one very unfortunate misunderstanding about tentacle etiquette. I was Commander Vrek the Undefeated, bearer of the Crimson Star, scourge of the Outer Rim. And I was being invaded by a 28-year-old mechanical engineer with a credit problem. Security team to Deck 7, I commanded, my voice steady despite the absolute absurdity of the situation. Non-lethal containment protocols only. And for the love of the eternal void, someone tell me how she got past our orbital defenses. Prill manipulated his console frantically, his appendages moving so fast they blurred. Commander, reviewing the logs now. It appears she took a commercial shuttle to the International Space Station, then somehow convinced the station commander to let her borrow an EVA suit, then. Oh. I do not like, oh. Nothing good ever follows, oh. She jury-rigged the EVA suit's propulsion system using parts from 3 different manufacturers, none of which were designed to work together, created a makeshift magnetic grapple from what appears to be a climbing harness and several electromagnets, and... Sir, she spacewalked to our ship. The bridge went silent again. Even our life support systems seemed to pause in disbelief. She spacewalked, I repeated carefully, to our invisible, cloaked, military-grade warship. Yes, sir. How did she even know where we were? According to her social media posts, and I am quoting here, basic orbital mechanics, baby. If you understand Hohmann transfers and have a decent pair of binoculars, invisible aliens are surprisingly visible. Also, you guys parked directly over my apartment and kept blocking my satellite TV. I felt something crack in my understanding of reality. Perhaps it was my sanity. Perhaps it was merely my pride. At this point, they seemed interchangeable. Commander. That was Tom again, and his voice had achieved a pitch I did not think possible for a Kaltheen. She's moving. Deck 6 now. She's heading toward engineering. Block all corridor access. Seal the bulkheads. Already done, sir. And... She's using the maintenance shafts. Of course she was. Of course the human had immediately located the one vulnerability in our internal security grid, the narrow passages designed for our smallest repair drones, passages that no sentient being should be able to navigate. How is she even fitting in those shafts? I demanded. Humans are apparently very flexible, sir. And determined. Extremely determined. She is also providing running commentary. What? Tom tapped his console, and suddenly Maggie Torres' voice filled the bridge, echoing from her communication device, which she had apparently set to broadcast mode. Okay, so, fun fact about alien spaceships, she was saying, her voice remarkably cheerful given that she was crawling through a maintenance shaft in a hostile vessel. They still need ventilation. And where there's ventilation, there's shafts. Every action movie ever has taught me this. Die Hard. Classic shaft crawling. Alien. Iconic shaft hiding. And these aliens, bless their weird little hearts, have the same HVAC problems we do. HVAC? I asked weakly. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the computer supplied helpfully. Maggie continued talking, apparently unaware or uncaring that we could hear her. Now, I am not saying that conquering Earth is a bad idea from their perspective. I am just saying that if you are going to park your invasion fleet over someone's apartment, you could at least have the courtesy to not interrupt the season finale of Baking Battles. I have been waiting 3 weeks to see if Marcus wins with his sourdough fusion experiment. She is complaining about entertainment programming, Tom said, his voice hollow. During an infiltration of our warship. I am aware, yes. On the security feeds, I watched as Maggie emerged from the maintenance shaft directly into our engineering section. Our chief engineer, a battle-scarred veteran named Cross, stood frozen in place, staring at her. 3 of his 4 arms were holding various tools. The 4th was pointing at her in what I recognized as existential shock. "Hi," Maggie said brightly, waving. "Love what you have done with the place. Very industrial chic. Question, is this a plasma conduit or a coolant line? Because if it is plasma, you have got a pretty serious containment leak right there." She pointed at a junction we had been meaning to repair for 6 lunar cycles. Cross made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. How did you? "Thermal imaging on my phone," Maggie explained, holding up her device. $29 app. Totally worth it. Also, not to tell you how to run your ship, but that leak. That is a widowmaker waiting to happen. I had a similar problem with a hydraulic press once. Nearly took my head off. Good times. "Security to engineering," I commanded, my voice tight. "Now." But as I watched the security team rush toward engineering, I noticed something that made my blood chill in my veins. Maggie Torres was not just standing there. She was moving through engineering with purpose, her eyes scanning systems, her hands occasionally reaching out to touch panels, to trace conduit lines, to examine junction boxes. And I realized, with growing horror, that she was not just wandering. She was mapping. Learning. Understanding. "Commander," the computer said, and there was something in its synthesized voice that approximated concern. "The human is accessing our engineering database. That is impossible. Our systems are encrypted with quantum-level security." "Yes, sir." She plugged her phone into our console using a charging cable and somehow bypassed 700 years of Kaltheen cryptographic advancement. "With a charging cable." "Yes, sir." I watched as Maggie, still humming something that sounded like human music, scrolled through our ship specifications on her primitive device. "Oh, wow," she said aloud. "You guys are running thorium-based reactors. That is so retro. We theorized about these in the 1960s. Never built them because of proliferation concerns, but the efficiency ratios are actually pretty sweet. Although." She leaned closer to a monitor. "Is that really your fuel rod configuration? Because if it is, no wonder you have got containment issues. The geometry is all wrong for optimal neutron flux." Cross, who had spent 40 years mastering Kaltheen engineering, made a small whimpering sound. "I am going down there," I announced, rising from my command cradle. "This has gone on long enough." "Sir, is that wise?" Tom asked. "She is clearly unstable." "She is human," I corrected. "Which, I am beginning to suspect, is far worse." As I made my way through the corridors of my own ship, I could not help but reflect on the absurdity of the situation. We had studied humans for 3 cycles. We knew their cities, their weapons, their governments. We had calculated every variable, anticipated every defense. We had planned for nuclear strikes, for biological warfare, for coordinated military response. We had prepared for humanity's best soldiers, their most brilliant scientists, their most cunning leaders. We had not prepared for Maggie Torres from Houston, Texas, who was 17 days late on her car payment and really angry about missing her TV show. When I entered engineering, she was sitting on a console, legs swinging, eating something from a small package. "Want a granola bar?" she offered, holding out the package. "It has got chocolate chips." "You will cease this intrusion immediately," I commanded, drawing myself up to my full height, my plates extending to their most intimidating configuration. "You are aboard a military vessel of the Kaltheen Empire. You have violated 17 interstellar laws, breached sovereign territory, and compromised classified systems." She blinked at me. "Okay, but counterpoint, you are literally planning to invade my planet. I checked your database. Operation Subjugation, right? Very creative name, by the way. Really rolls off the tongue. That information is classified." "Was classified." Now it is on my phone. Along with, like, 1,000 photos of your reactor room. My group chat is going to flip. Your group chat? Yeah, me and my girlfriends. We have a thing every Friday. We were supposed to do karaoke tonight, but then I saw your ship blocking my satellite, and well, here we are. She took another bite of her granola bar. So, real talk, Commander. What is the deal? Why Earth? We are not even that interesting. We have barely figured out nuclear fusion. We still use fossil fuels. Our planet is like 70% water and most of us cannot even swim properly. I stared at her, trying to process the sheer audacity. Earth is strategically located. Your system has resources. Your species, while primitive, could be useful. Once properly controlled. Aha. Useful. She hopped off the console and walked toward me. I noticed, despite myself, that I took a step back. Here is the thing, Commander. And I am just spitballing here, but maybe, and hear me out, maybe you should not invade Earth. And why would I alter my military strategy based on the opinion of one human female who is, at this moment, my prisoner? She grinned. It was not a reassuring expression. Because I just sent your entire ship specifications, including this lovely thermal leak, to every government on Earth, plus 16 private aerospace companies, 27 universities, and one guy I know who runs a conspiracy theory blog. He is going to be so happy. He has been saying aliens are real since 2003. Also, I kind of, maybe, possibly, definitely adjusted your reactor configuration while you were on your way here. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. You did what? Nothing major. Just optimized the fuel rod geometry. You will get, like, 18% better efficiency now. You are welcome. But, tiny side effect, if anyone tries to fire your primary weapons without recalibrating the power distribution, the whole system will overload and shut down. For about, 72 hours. Maybe more. I am not super familiar with Kaltheen technology yet, but I am a quick learner. Yet? I repeated faintly. Yeah, I figure if you are going to park over my apartment, I might as well learn how your stuff works. Professional development, you know. Looks great on a resume. Somewhere behind me, I heard cross collapse. The next several minutes existed in what I can only describe as a state of suspended terror. Not the clean, simple terror of combat. Not the calculated fear of political assassination or the visceral dread of biological warfare. No, this was the specific, uniquely horrifying terror of realizing that a single human with a smartphone and an engineering degree had just turned your flagship warship into a very expensive, very temperamental paperweight. You are bluffing, I said, though my vocal sac had deflated to approximately half its normal size, which any Kaltheen would recognize as a sign of extreme stress. You could not possibly have compromised our reactor systems in the time it took me to reach engineering. Maggie pulled out her phone, swiped a few times, and turned it toward me. On the screen was a schematic of our power distribution network, with several sections highlighted in what humans apparently considered a warning color, red. Very bright red. Angry red. See this junction here? She pointed with one finger. And this capacitor bank? And these 17 coupling nodes? Yeah, they are all out of sync now. Like, really out of sync. Harmonics are going to be super weird. You try to push weapons-grade power through that configuration, and... She made an explosive gesture with her hands, complete with sound effects. Pop goes the weasel. What is a weasel? I asked, then immediately regretted it. Never mind. Security, restrain her. The security team, all 6 of them, moved forward. They were trained warriors, each equipped with neural stunners and reinforced exoskeletons. They surrounded Maggie in a standard containment formation that had subdued everything from berserk Vrol warriors to rogue combat drones. Maggie looked at them, looked at me, and sighed. Okay, so, before you do the whole restraining thing, quick question, do any of you know how to recalibrate a thorium plasma reactor with misaligned fuel geometries? The security team looked at each other. Then at me. Then at Cross, who was still on the floor, staring at the ceiling and muttering something about thermodynamics in his native language. Because, Maggie continued cheerfully, if you do not fix it in the next, 48 hours or so, the misalignment is going to cause a cascade failure in your cooling systems. Not explosive. Totally safe. You will just lose main power, life support will drop to emergency backup, and you will be drifting in orbit over Earth while every government down there scrambles to figure out how to either capture or destroy you. But hey, no pressure. I felt something snap in my command training. You are holding your own life hostage. You are on this ship. You would die with us. Would I though? She tilted her head, that strange human gesture that could mean curiosity or mockery or both. Because I spacewalked here, Commander. In a jury-rigged EVA suit. For fun. Do you really think I did not plan an exit strategy? There is nowhere for you to go. We are in orbit. True. Super true. Excellent point. She walked over to a viewport, and we all followed her like hatchlings following a matriarch, which was humiliating on several levels I would need years of therapy to process. But see, funny thing. While I was crawling through your maintenance shafts, I noticed you have emergency escape pods. 6 of them. And they all use a pretty standard chemical propulsion system. And I happen to know that Earth's atmosphere is, like, right there. She pressed her hand against the viewport. 8-minute descent, max. I have gone on roller coasters scarier than that. Tom's voice crackled over my communication implant. Commander, she is correct about the escape pods. And... Sir, we are detecting unusual activity on the planet's surface. Define unusual. Multiple launches. Satellites. Surveillance drones. At least 30 different nations have just activated their space monitoring programs. Someone leaked our position. I looked at Maggie. She waved her phone. Group chat, remember? Also, Twitter. Facebook. Instagram. Reddit. I am kind of a big deal right now. Hashtag alien invasion. Hashtag space engineer. Hashtag they really should have fixed that thermal leak. You posted our location on social media? Yup. Got like 40,000 likes in 10 minutes. There is a meme going around right now. You are kind of famous, Commander. They are calling you the visible invisible alien. The internet thinks it is hilarious. This could not be happening. This absolutely could not be happening. I had conquered the Vroth system without losing a single soldier. I had negotiated trade agreements with 3 separate hostile governments while poisoning 2 of them. I had once talked a supernova cult out of exploding a star just by pointing out the paperwork involved. I was a legend in military circles. And I was being defeated by memes. Commander, Cross said weakly from the floor, finally recovering enough to speak. She is right about the reactor. I am analyzing the changes now. The geometry. It is actually brilliant. We should have been running this configuration for years. But the power coupling is completely destabilized. If we fire weapons. He trailed off, making a gesture that in Kaltheen culture meant certain catastrophic failure. I turned to Maggie. What do you want? Oh, now we are talking. She clapped her hands together. Okay, here is my list. 1. Stop planning to invade Earth. Super rude, not cool, we have enough problems with climate change and arguing about pineapple on pizza. We do not need alien conquerors on top of that. 2. Fix that thermal leak before someone gets hurt. Seriously, I am worried about you guys. That is a safety hazard. 3. share some of your technology with us. Not the weapons stuff. We are already pretty good at killing each other, we do not need help with that. But your propulsion systems? Your energy generation? That medical scanner thing I saw on deck 4. That stuff could actually help people. You expect me to simply give you our technology? I asked, incredulous. Technology we developed over thousands of years. I mean, I kind of already stole your reactor specifications, so yeah, I do expect that. But also, think about it from a practical perspective. She started counting on her fingers. You came here to conquer us because you thought we were weak and primitive, right? But I just waltzed onto your ship, hacked your systems, sabotaged your weapons, and became an internet celebrity in the process. And I am just one person. One engineer who was mad about missing a TV show. Now imagine what humanity could do if we actually had a reason to fight you. We are creative, Commander. We are stubborn. We once fought a war that lasted 100 years over a bucket. An actual bucket. Look it up. We will turn our entire industrial capacity into making your invasion as annoying as possible. She makes a compelling argument, Tom said through my implant. Humans are unexpectedly difficult. Also, Maggie continued, and this is important, we have nukes. Lots of them. And yes, you have shields and fancy armor and all that, but here is the thing about humans. We are really, really good at making things explode. It is kind of our thing. We invented fireworks and immediately thought, how can we make this a weapon? We split the atom and made bombs before we made power plants. We are aggressively creative with destruction. So you can try to invade us, and maybe you will win eventually, but it is going to be so expensive, so time-consuming, and so incredibly irritating that you will spend the next century wondering why you did not just become trade partners instead. The bridge was silent. I could hear my own cardiovascular system working overtime, pumping fluids through my body at stress levels usually reserved for actual combat. Furthermore, Maggie said, apparently not done with her speech, you are going to need us. Humans, I mean. Because here is what I learned from your database while you were walking down here, you guys are in trouble. Your empire is overextended. You have got supply line issues. 3 of your colony worlds are in open rebellion. Your economy is barely holding together because you keep spending everything on military expansion. And you know what humans are really good at? Besides explosions? Problem solving. Give us a broken engine, we will fix it with duct tape and optimism. Give us a resource shortage, we will invent 6 new ways to recycle. Give us an impossible deadline, we will meet it out of pure spite. You could conquer us and have a resentful, rebellious population that makes your life miserable for generations. Or you could work with us and have access to the most stubborn, creative, and frankly unhinged problem solvers in the galaxy. I looked at Cross. Is she right about our empire? He nodded slowly. The resource analysis reports have been concerning. For several years now. Why was I not informed? You were. Multiple times. You said you would handle it after the Earth conquest. Ancestors preserve me. I was a fool. A prideful, short-sighted fool who had been so focused on expansion that I had missed the slow collapse happening behind me. And this human, this Maggie Torres who was late on her car payments and loved baking shows, had seen it in minutes just by browsing our database. Let me be clear about something, I said, straightening my posture, trying to salvage some dignity. You have committed acts of espionage, sabotage, and unauthorized boarding. By all rights, I should imprison you. You could try, she agreed. But then you would have a dead reactor and no one who knows how to fix it. Also, my government is probably going to want me back. And I am guessing starting a diplomatic incident by keeping a civilian hostage is not great for the whole, maybe do not invade Earth, negotiations you are going to have to start soon. She was right. Again. Still. Continuously right, which was starting to become intolerable. What guarantee do I have that if I agree to your terms, you will restore our systems? I asked. Maggie pulled out her phone again, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a message to someone named Lisa, apparently part of her group chat. The message read, "If I am not back by midnight, send the full reactor specs to NASA. Also, tell Marcus congrats on his sourdough if he wins." "That is my guarantee," she said. "You let me fix your reactor, you stop planning to invade Earth, you agree to open diplomatic channels for peaceful technology exchange, and I do not doom your entire species to become the laughingstock of the galaxy. Because trust me, Commander, humans can hold a grudge. We once banned a guy from an entire continent for bringing rabbits to Australia. Imagine what we will do to aliens who tried to conquer us." The security team was still standing around us, uncertain. Cross was back on his feet, examining the reactor schematics with a mixture of horror and admiration. Tom was probably having a stress-induced molt cycle on the bridge. And I, Commander Vrek the supposedly undefeated, was being diplomatically outmaneuvered by a mechanical engineer in sneakers. "Fine," I said, the word tasting like defeat and pragmatism mixed together. "You will restore the reactor. We will cease invasion preparations. And we will discuss technology exchange." "Awesome." Maggie bounced on her toes, which seemed to be a human expression of joy. "Okay, I am going to need a few things. First, a proper tool kit. Yours is fine but missing some stuff. Second, coffee. Like, a lot of coffee. This is going to take a while and I have been awake for 22 hours. Third, someone who can take dictation because I am going to explain exactly what I did and how to fix it, and you should probably write this down for future reference." "You have been awake for 22 hours, I repeated weakly. "Yeah, I had a deadline at work yesterday. Finished a project, saw your ship, thought, why not, and here we are. Life is weird like that." She stretched, her joints making small popping sounds that I found disturbing. "Oh, and fourth thing, can someone call the space station and let them know I am okay? I kind of borrowed that EVA suit without exactly asking, and Commander Patterson is probably freaking out." Over the next 6 hours, I watched Maggie Torres rebuild our reactor configuration with the same casual confidence that I imagine she fixed elevators back on Earth. She explained every step, answered every question, and somehow managed to improve 3 other systems while she was at it. Cross followed her around like a devoted apprentice, taking notes and occasionally making sounds of disbelief when she casually solved problems that had plagued Kaltheen engineers for decades. "The thing about engineering," she explained while rewiring a plasma conduit, "is that species don't matter. Physics is physics. Thermodynamics is thermodynamics. You work with what you have, you understand the principles, and you fix the problem. You guys just got stuck in conventional thinking. Sometimes you need an outside perspective." "Or an inside perspective," Tom said, having come down from the bridge to observe. "You did break into our ship." "Tomato, tomato," Maggie replied, which made no sense but seemed to satisfy her. When she finally finished, the reactor hummed with a stability we had not achieved in years. Our efficiency had increased by 19%, slightly better than her initial estimate. The thermal leak was sealed. The power distribution was balanced. Everything worked better than it had when we left port. "There," she said, wiping her hands on her pants. "All fixed. You are welcome. Now, about those diplomatic talks." And that is how the Kaltheen Empire, one of the most feared military powers in 7 sectors, ended up signing a non-aggression treaty with Earth. Not because humanity had superior weapons. Not because they had some secret defense we could not overcome. But because one human female walked onto our ship, broke everything just enough to prove she could, and then fixed it better than we had ever managed to do ourselves. The formal negotiations took 3 months. We agreed to technology exchange programs. We agreed to mutual defense pacts. We agreed to trade agreements that actually benefited both parties. And we agreed to never, ever park our ships over Houston, Texas during primetime television. Maggie became Earth's first official alien liaison. Her first act was to demand that we help solve their climate crisis. Her second act was to introduce our diplomats to pizza. Her third act was to somehow convince 5 other alien species to join what she called the Galactic Neighborhood Watch, which was essentially a mutual defense and technology sharing agreement that made everyone safer and more prosperous. I see her occasionally now, during official functions. She always greets me with that same cheerful wave, that same slight smirk that says she knows exactly how ridiculous the entire situation is. Sometimes she asks about our reactor efficiency. Sometimes she complains about her car payments. Once, she brought me a granola bar, the same kind she had been eating when she invaded my ship. I accepted it. It was actually quite good. The other commanders in the fleet still mock me sometimes. Defeated by a human, they say. Brought down by a mechanical engineer. They are wrong, though. I was not defeated. I was educated. There is a difference. Because here is what I learned from Maggie Torres on that very strange, very long day: humans are not weak. They are not primitive. They are something far more dangerous than any warrior race we had ever encountered. They are adaptable. They are creative. They are absolutely unhinged in the best possible way. And they will knock on your door, walk into your home, break your stuff, fix it better than you ever could, and somehow make you grateful for the experience. We did not lose control when she entered our ship. We gained perspective. We gained an ally. We gained a future that did not involve endless conquest and inevitable collapse. We gained Maggie Torres, which meant we gained hope. And honestly, after 40 years of military service, that was worth more than any invasion could ever have been. Even if I do still have nightmares about granola bars and sneakers.